April 1st, 1945. 23:47 hours. Private First Class Robert Chun crouched in a shallow foxhole on the southern edge of Kakazu Ridge, staring into a darkness so complete he couldn't see his own hand 6 inches from his face. Across his lap lay an M3 carbine, 28 pounds of experimental science that looked more like a generator with a trigger than a rifle. Everyone else in his division carried the lightweight M1 or M2 carbine. Chun carried a weapon with a battery pack strapped to his back, a cable running up to a long infrared scope. The men joked it was a car battery with a trigger. Some called it science fiction, some called it useless. Chun didn't know which one was true. All he knew was this: the Japanese were coming and he couldn't see them. For 72 hours, Japanese infiltrators had been slipping through grass, drainage ditches, and coral pockets, crawling silently until they were right on top of American foxholes. In 3 nights they had killed 34 Americans in the 96th Infantry Division. The defenders had fired thousands of rounds into pitch blackness. They killed only 7 Japanese. No one could see anything. Flares helped, but every flare blinded the Americans the moment it burned out. For half a minute after each flare died, the infiltrators had total freedom to move, shift, and strike. That was why Chun had been issued the M3 carbine, a weapon the Army had only produced about 1,700 units of. 150 of them were here on Okinawa. Chun had trained for 3 weeks to use it, learning to identify man-sized targets at 70 yards in total darkness. The system gave him 20 to 30 minutes of battery power, if the humidity didn't kill it first. 4 minutes before midnight, Chun heard movement, 60, maybe 70 yards southeast. He activated the battery. A faint vibration hummed against his spine. The infrared spotlight came alive, invisible to the naked eye but perfectly clear through his scope. Chun slowly swept the narrow 10-degree field of view until a shape appeared, bright green against the darker background. A man crawling through a drainage ditch. Behind him, 2 more. Chun steadied the heavy weapon, exhaled, and fired. 1 shot. The lead infiltrator collapsed without a sound. The second man froze. Chun fired again. The third man rose, panicked. Chun fired a 3rd shot. 3 kills, 9 seconds. The Japanese had no idea what hit them. Minutes later, he detected 4 more men in the tree line, confused, whispering, trying to understand how their comrades had died without muzzle flashes, without warning. They moved west, shifting routes. Chun tracked them, let them go, shut down the scope to save the battery. 5 minutes later, more movement. 2 of the same 4 men trying a flanking approach. Chun reactivated the scope, fired twice, and both were down. Battery at 40%. Time to swap packs. 15 seconds of blind vulnerability. Chun disconnected, reconnected, locked the new battery in place, and resumed scanning. The Japanese adapted quickly. They avoided drainage ditches, avoided open ground. They moved through terrain so thick even the M3 struggled. Chun shifted his position higher on the ridge, where he could see approach routes more clearly. The next night he intercepted a scout sprinting across a small clearing, then spotted 3 more infiltrators waiting to follow him. The scout fell mid-stride. The others froze, then vanished into the vegetation. They were learning. But Chun's advantage still held. At 3:12 the next morning, the scope flickered. Humidity and heat caused condensation inside the unit. Chun shut it down to cool, reactivated it, and kept scanning. Hours later, he detected a 7-man infiltration team advancing in a line. This was bolder than anything he'd seen. When they hit 60 yards, Chun opened fire. 1 fell, then another. The remaining infiltrators panicked and fired blindly at the American lines 40 yards in front of Chun's position. completely unaware the man killing them was above and behind the line. Chun used their muzzle flashes to track them. Every time a rifle cracked, a green silhouette appeared. Chun fired, moved again. 4 more kills, 23 seconds. The ridge went silent. By April 3rd, word had spread across the entire division. Other M3 operators were achieving the same results. Private Eugene Wilson killed 6 infiltrators in one engagement. Corporal James Harkley detected a 12-man group and guided machine gun fire on them before they ever reached the perimeter. The numbers were astonishing. 150 men, barely 3% of the division, were responsible for 31% of all Japanese casualties from rifle and carbine fire during night operations. In sectors covered by M3 operators, American casualties dropped by 94%. The Japanese night infiltration doctrine, perfected at Guadalcanal, Saipan, and Iwo Jima, was collapsing. But the enemy kept adapting. On April 5th, thick coastal fog rolled in. The M3 could penetrate the fog but at half the normal range. Chun could see maybe 35, 40 yards at most. Then he saw them, 10 or more shapes advancing. He fired, dropping 3, but the fog allowed the others to close the distance. At 25 yards, they were dangerously close. Chun switched the M3 to full automatic. 15 rounds disappeared in 2 seconds. He reloaded, fired another burst. The infiltrators scattered. At dawn, 7 bodies lay in front of his position. 3 more were within 15 yards of the American line. It was the closest any enemy had come to Chun's perimeter. 2 days later, the Japanese tried a new tactic, blinding the scopes. At 1:56 on April 7th, a blinding flashlight beam snapped on 60 yards out, pointed directly at Chun. The M3's image tube washed out completely. It was clever, desperate but clever. Chun shut down the scope, pulled a grenade, and hurled it toward the light, 12 feet short. The flashlight vanished. Chun reactivated the scope, found 3 bodies, and dropped a 4th man as he tried to escape. By the end of the first week, the results were undeniable. 412 Japanese casualties from rifle and carbine fire. 127 of those were from M3 operators. The enemy began issuing new orders. No more large-scale night infiltrations. Movement only in fog or heavy rain. Retreat into caves. Avoid any open approach route. The Americans had turned the night against them. The M3 didn't win Okinawa, but it changed it. It forced the enemy underground. It saved 200 to 300 American lives in a single week, lives that never became casualties because infiltrators never reached the line. Chun continued operating the system until late May. His last confirmed engagement came near Shuri Castle, 3 infiltrators at 69 yards, 3 shots, 3 kills. Then the night attacks nearly stopped altogether. The battle ended June 22nd. After the war, most M3 carbines were destroyed, cut apart with torches. The technology was too secret to risk falling into enemy hands. Only a few survive in museums today, usually with incomplete records of who used them. Chun himself vanished from the record. No medal citations, no interviews, no post-war story. Just a name in a technical report attached to one of the rarest weapons of World War II. A soldier who turned darkness into daylight. A man who fought a war the enemy could not see. The M3 carbine became the foundation of modern night vision. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, all of it traces back to those 150 operators on Okinawa. Men like Chun, sitting alone in foxholes with 28 pounds of fragile technology on their backs, thumbing battery switches, scanning for shapes moving silently through the night. They didn't storm beaches. They didn't take hills. They weren't the heroes you read about in history books, but they protected the men who did. They defeated night itself. They saved lives by ending others, one green silhouette at a time, 70 yards away. And if men like Robert Chun deserve more than a forgotten footnote, let us know where you're watching from. Hit subscribe, join the community, and help keep these stories alive. Real people,